Before we start, I'm going to just give an overview of the OPPRC and yes, but before even give an overview of the OPPRC, allow me to welcome to the floor the president of the OPPRC, that is President Abdullah Falati, to just greet us and give us a welcoming address.
Good morning, good evening everywhere, everyone. Good evening to people from Austria. Good evening to people from Canada. Good evening to people from the African Union. Gloria, indeed, she's in African Union at the moment. And thank you, Ambassador Yvette. Thanks for everything. You always stood on behalf of OPPRC, and you stood personally behind me as well. You support us with everything we ask you. Thank you very much for your time, and we are so glad to have you here, and we can learn a lot from you. And thank you, Ambassador Ezekiel, the General Secretary of OPPRC, is always active. And thank you for the President of Canada, OPPRC Canada, Fatia. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for all our participants. And welcome to this webinar today. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much again, Your Excellency, for even creating time to join us. And yes, as he has mentioned, we are all welcome today, and let's enjoy this beautiful session. So, ladies and gentlemen, now that we have received that amazing welcoming address, allow me to just proceed shortly and brief you about the OPPRC. So, we are an NGO. We are an NGO that advocates for peace in Africa and abroad. Our main work is silencing the guns. Additionally to that, we champion for climate change. We champion for African youth. We champion for education, entrepreneurship opportunities for people in and out of Africa. So, great ladies and gentlemen, as you all know, the OPPRC has been hosting webinar series since time immemorial. And today we are going to listen from Ambassador Yvette Philbert, who is a diplomat who wears so many hats. She is well experienced in different sections. And just allow me, before I introduce her, just to mention some of the key things that Ambassador Philbert wears. So the first and foremost, Ambassador Yvette Philbert is a Global Peace Ambassador and UK Country Director. Additionally, she is an executive board member and event coordinator. She works in the Commonwealth Countries League, where she even won the Serendipity Award. Up to that, she's also one of the 100 Black women who have made a mark in the United Kingdom in 2024. As we have all seen, she stands as an exemplar of women and inclusivity in governance in Africa and abroad. But the most important thing about Ambassador Philbert is that she is the diplomatic mission and partnership officer at the OPPRC. So, ladies and gentlemen, she is going to talk about the shifting balance of power, Africa's voice in global diplomacy. Therefore, join me in appreciating and clapping for Ambassador Yvette Philbert as she comes to address us. Your Excellency, the floor is yours.
Okay. Good evening, good morning, wherever you are on the time zone. I bring warm greetings to you from a very cold London, which is what we're experiencing today. Thank you so much to the President and all of my colleagues, my fellow colleagues who work with me at the OPPRC. I thank you so much for the kind invitation. Thank you so much, Mr. President, Dr. Fati. Thank you so much for the introduction and the welcome. My thanks to our able General Secretary, Mr. Ezekiel. Thank you so much. I know you guys work so hard. My thanks to you, Gloria. You've been an absolutely amazing colleague at OPPRC. So just want to start off with, Ezekiel, are you able to just move the slides on for me to the opening, the actual opening for me? So 2 slides on. On slide 4, please. Okay. So these are just, as Gloria was saying, these are just some of the areas that I work within in terms of diplomacy and humanitarianism throughout my life. So I'd like to say, distinguished guests, if there are any fellow diplomats here, partners of OPPRC network, and most importantly, our aspiring young leaders, thank you once again for this gracious opportunity to share a moment of reflection, dialogue, and of course, hope, which is what it is that this OPPRC is built on hope. It is both an honor and a responsibility to speak on transformative, the shifting balance of power, Africa's voice in global diplomacy. I extend to you my heartfelt gratitude to the Pan-African Organization for Peace and Conflict Resolution, our collaborating partners, and especially to Phallus as well, and to all who continue to create spaces for conversation, learning, and ultimately for unity. So today's Africa is not silent. Can you just move the slide on for me, please? Next slide. Okay. So I'm just setting the scene for you. Sorry, just go back one. Okay. So today's Africa is not silent. Today's Africa is rising, not in rebellion, but is in renaissance. And we gather here not just to discuss change, but to define what change really is. We are living in one of the most extraordinary transitions in human history. Political alliances are shifting. Economies are redefining themselves. Digital diplomacy is becoming the new language of statecraft. In the midst of it all stands Africa, the world's youngest continent, home to the fastest growing cities, the most untapped innovation, and the richest cultural diversity. Africa's voice is growing stronger, not because others are giving us space, but because we are now claiming it, or I would say reclaiming it. So let us remember, Africa has always been part of the diplomatic story. From ancient trade routes of Mali and Egypt to peace councils across the Great Lakes, we were mediators, negotiators, and nation builders long before the word diplomacy was even coined. Through Pan-Africanism, through the courage of visionaries such as Kwame Nkrumah, Julius Nyerere, and Nelson Mandela, the spirit of African diplomacy was reborn. Our legacy is not just of survival, it is of strategic endurance. So what does this shifting balance of power truly mean? It means that influence now flows through knowledge, innovation, and partnerships. Africa is emerging not as a problem to be solved, but as a partner to be respected. Africa holds some of the greatest diplomatic resources on earth, its people. We are a continent of over 1.4 billion citizens, more than 60% of whom are under the age of 25. That is not a challenge. That is diplomatic gold. Across the continent, new leadership models are emerging. Women in foreign ministries, young ambassadors of peace, diaspora professionals influencing global policy right now. Women have always been the quiet architects of peace. Through the World Humanitarian Organization for Peace and Equity here in the UK, of which I am the country director, and of course through the work of the Commonwealth Countries League, I have witnessed how women, when empowered, transform not only families, but nations. To include women in diplomacy is not an act of charity, it's an act of strategy. Education, in its truest sense, is diplomacy in disguise. It shapes our minds, builds empathy, and cultivate leaders who value dialogue over destruction. WOPE and OPPRC equip young people with tools to resolve conflict peacefully and advocate ethically. The Pan-African dream remains one of our greatest diplomatic projects. The African continent free trade area represents not just economics, it is the language of self-reliance. When Africa trades with Africa, Africa wins. Right. Can we move on? Next slide, please. Our nations contribute the highest number of peacekeeping forces in the world, but yet we remain underrepresented in decision-making bodies like the UN Security Council. We do not seek privilege, we seek parity. For too long, cooperation with Africa has been defined by aid. Let me give you something. It is absolutely astounding, as if we are a poor nation, so we always need aid. We must move on from aid to alliance, from pity to partnership. Diplomacy is not only political, it's a cultural and spiritual. In my role within, again, I've just recently been given a role within the Amadi Kingdom in Nigeria, in Ebonyi State, as a diplomatic mission officer for the OPPRC. I have seen how culture can be a form of soft power, bridging African and Caribbean identities, because I am from the Caribbean, but my soul lives in Africa. The heart of Africa's the new diplomacy beats in the rhythm of innovation. Innovation is the new foreign policy of the future. We must embrace partnership as our most powerful diplomatic tool. Organizations like OPPRC, WOPE, the Commonwealth Countries League, exemplify this truth. Together, we build bridges across disciplines between lawyers, educators, and leaders. Let Africa speak with one united voice. Let us define diplomacy not by titles, but by our impact. The power we seek is already within us. It only needs to be aligned, amplified, and applied. Next slide, please. In the words of Nelson Mandela, it always seems impossible until it's done. Africa's time is not coming. It is here. To the world, I say, listen to Africa's voice. It carries not only wisdom, but balance. So that really is just the coverage of what it is I have to present to you today. I know it wasn't as long as you expected, but I'm not one for very long speeches, as everyone will let you know. So I normally just keep straight to the point and leave us with enough time for us for Q&As and further fact-finding and some of the things that we as an organization at OPPRC are able to continue our work across the world, not just Africa, but across the world. Pan-Africanism is a movement. Welcome to the movement of Pan-Africanism. Thank you.
Wow, please a round of applause for Her Excellency. A round of applause for Her Excellency. She has reminded us about what Africa holds. She has reminded, she's talked about the UN Security Council. She's talked about how Africa should get that representation at the UN Security Council. She has touched on a very important instrument, the FCTA, talking about continental integration, talking about us Africans, power shifting. So please, ladies and gentlemen, on the count of 5 to 1, on the count of 3 to 1, please join me in just verbally unmute your mic and say, thank you, Ambassador. Thank you, Ambassador. On the count of 3, 2, 1. Thank you.
Merci beaucoup, Ambassadeur. Merci beaucoup.
Thank you.
So thank you once again.
Murakoze Chani.
Yes. So Murakoze Chani, yes, please. That is from Excellency.
I love the different languages on this platform. It really is just so amazing.
Yes, please. As Africans, we want to maintain our heritage and talk our language. Ezekiel said, Asante sana, Swahili. Yes. So please, ladies and gentlemen, I cannot even summarize what she has said, because if we decide to go that angle, we're going to talk about everything. So I would just like to open this session for question and answer. And in case you have any question, please raise your hand so that we can have this very interactive session.
Yes, please.
Or I will ask my first question.
Yes, do go ahead.
Okay, thank you so much for your permission, Ambassador. So my first question is very, very, very simple. We're talking about the shifting of power, and what do you think about Africa achieving, to stop relying on foreign countries? Very much know about the millions of grants that are sent into our continent. And as we all know, Africa is, they usually say you're a slave to he that funds you.
Yes.
So what is your take on Africa reaching a state of reliance now that you're talking about shifting of power?
I believe that, thank you so much for the question. I do believe that right now we have access to one of the most powerful tools, which is the internet. It is so powerful. And a lot of the times we don't realize that we are the people who shape the future. We don't need to believe that, like I said before, you need to have a title to do something that is different. Africa is the resource channel of the world. Every country within Africa has got seriously like an expanse of resources. It's how we choose to use those resources. It's how it is that we choose our educational systems. Are they actually good for what the purpose is supposed to be? Some of our schools, the curriculum is over 100 years old. We have not held our governments to account as people. We need to do so, need to challenge them and say, listen, what the curriculum you've got right now does not work right now in 2025. The curriculum of 100 years ago is useless. So what you're doing is training children to become useless in society, because you are not redefining the role that you have within the continent through education. And it's only through education can we make changes, and lasting changes, effective changes, sustainable changes. We have to start at our education. I know there's loads of us who are looking at universities, but if we don't train our brains to understand what we deal with now, present day, what use are we going to be to the wider world? What do we need now? 100 years ago, what were we using? Maybe chalk and slate? When was the last time you saw chalk and slate in a classroom? Unless it's in the back annals of the Amazons, and even they have got pens and paper now. They've even got tablets, smartphones. So why would you teach with a slate and a chalk when at the present value you need to have a smartphone or a tablet or a computer? You cannot teach forward thinking with backward tools. Impossible. Absolutely impossible. You cannot. We need to start changing the narrative from the statutory level of children. What are we teaching them when they go to kindergarten? For those of us who are privileged enough to send our children to kindergarten, what are they learning? Are they still reading Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs? What relevance is that to them and their minds growing up right now? None whatsoever. A lot of the times what we've become comfortable with is what we access. And the internet can be used for good or debasement. It's our choice. Whatever it is that you feed your mind is what it is that you will reap. You start regenerating your thoughts because that's your beliefs. Why are we not utilizing what we have that is right there on the ground in front of us? We have fertile soil. Why are we not encouraging agriculture to be taught as part of the curriculum? It's so important. If you know how to feed yourself and your country, do you need anything like UN aid? Would you need the Salvation Army? Would you need these grants that you could never pay back? You wouldn't if we traded within ourselves. Provide stability across pricing of our products. The only way we can go is up. We can become self-reliant once more. But we have to start at the educational level. I hope that answers your question.
Yes, that very much answers my my question, and I totally agree with you. This is because I also just realized there's a lot of gap in our education system, and thank you for emphasizing on educating young people on agriculture. Ladies and gentlemen, any other question? I am so sure you have a lot of questions, so please feel free to raise your hand, and then I will select you. Then you shall be. All right, so let's do it. Okay, so Miss Naira from Egypt, if you can. Okay, before she speaks, I can see, can we invite the president, President Falati, to air out his question?
Thank you very much, Gloria. Thank you very much for giving a chance to ask the ambassador, Yvette, related to youth, to the education, and the future of Africa. My question is, what is, like, for example, the advice you can give to the NGO the African NGO can work a lot in this perspective of getting the education back. For example, to install new education system in Africa, because now the education that our children having in Africa is not that the education we want, because we need to provide them the education that can suit with our needs, with our life, with our future as Africa. What are your recommendations related to this part?
Thank you so much for your question, Mr. President. Again, this is why I love OPPRC. OPPRC is built on partnerships. And that is what they always say to you. If you want to go far, take others with you. Because when you go alone, you're on a lonely road and no one else to sound your voice for you. OPPRC should be seen as the voice of Africa, the voice of change. We need to have individuals within OPPRC who are diplomats when it comes to dealing with governments. We have got governments who have they've installed their own embassies across Africa. Why is that? Because of the trade. Everyone's looking, what can I give to you and what can I take from you? But if we don't have a voice within the government, and this is where it is, NGOs don't understand that you are non-governmental. So you should not be just supporting one government. You need to work with all of the people. So you need to work with all of the different parties within the government. If you want to do something about the education system, find out who are the people who make those decisions in your government. Literally request a meeting with them. Spell out what OPPRC is about when it comes to furthering the education of the next generation. We need to have a boldness about us. As ambassadors for OPPRC, we need to have a boldness of saying, I've said this many times, walk with your chair on your back so that you can have a seat at the table. We are convicted by where we align ourselves. Look at the goals of OPPRC. They are clear as crystal. In an environment now where OPPRC seeks partnerships, utilize your ambassadors. Utilize your ambassadors to pull the leverage with these ministers of education who are based in the countries. Use your ambassadors to do that. If you believe that your team is strong enough, they will learn from each other. OPPRC is a platform for learning. At least that was my understanding when I joined. It's a place of learning. Each one, teach one. Because we can all achieve at the same time, with the same information and with the same gusto. You have to be intentional. OPPRC has got some amazing ambassadors. But be intentional. If it is that you believe that, okay, for the next 5 years, we are going to concentrate on changing the education system across the countries one by one, choose well your delegates who can speak on your behalf with clarity, purpose. They need to be purpose-driven and results-driven. The ones who will not take no for an answer, that will keep on knocking on that minister's door until they get to sit with them and have the conversation. The conversation needs to be had. So I hope that answers your question, Mr. President.
Of course you do. Thank you very much.